Thank you so much for meeting with me. So today I'm going to be talking to you about your the lesson I observed. I watched the math lesson over volume. A couple things I would love to sit down and chat with you about the lesson. Both, first off, I think you did very good addressing the students and watching and seeing the feedback as they come. Just especially with the fact that it's with it being virtual, sometimes the connection of students to teachers really doesn't happen. And watching you being able to connect with the students as they're kind of explaining some things, I thought that was very good and engaging, and encouraging the students to both participate and knowing that anything that they said would also be valid. I truly believe was huge, as a big plus. I also loved how just engaging it was to see at the end. So I loved how you maybe a couple things. I thought just watching the lesson play out, we walked through the notes, did a perfect example. And then one of the things that I thought was very engaging and neat, and something I've not seen before, was the question that you had them at the very end, before you set them with their homework, kind of finishing up, allowing them to either go into a breakout session to practice knowing the information as a whole was huge, or allowing them with a couple hints. I thought that would be a good way to if I kind of think I have it, they could actually see that. And then ultimately, if they were still in need of help, allowing them to just have that one-on-one, that connection still, walking through the lesson, just ultimately seeing and ensuring the students to have that knowledge was huge. I do believe the only thing I really saw that you could really maybe work on some growth, some enhancing of the lesson might be when you did the explanation. You went pretty fast over the formula, the dividing by 3. I know personally walking through with students here recently in math, I'm not a math person, but ultimately just, with that non-math knowledge, trying to help students who also kind of are, slower in some areas. One thing I think would help is just kind of breaking it down and maybe being able to show the explanation of why you divide by 3, maybe why you do a little bit extra within the problem, would be helpful. Ultimately, though, I saw great things from the lesson. I love the engaging. I love the aspect of communication with them. I do believe that you were seeing growth in the students. If you were to do the lesson multiple times, my thought is ultimately my goal would be every time to try to have fewer and fewer students in my remedial section where I go over it again, and putting more and more into the breakout sessions where they're confident in their ability. I thought that's a great way to also just see and engage where your students are, can be huge. Some extra strategies maybe using to maybe just being able to show your students some steps a little easier, specifically just because I'm not necessarily the math brain. In my head, I would personally need just more of showing the steps to help them have them on their notes so they can maybe see what step, where are they missing exactly. I think that possibly could help just maybe airing out any of the issues that the students might have, where that gap is coming from. Are they not dividing properly? Are they adding an extra number? Also, I love the fact that you referenced whenever you did height, you gave them a reference of going to the doctor, from toes to head. Those references, personally, I think are huge in trying to just connect with students. With a history background, I always try to make sure that they have some kind of concrete thing, and personally, I think that was brilliant, just communicating that with them. One other thing, probably the thing that most people, especially teaching online, is just the speed at which you're doing. But ultimately, overall, I thought that lesson had many aspects of where we can see definitely growth, and overall just great strategies played out. Thank you very much for the volume lesson.